Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another great episode. My name is Alex Salamone. I'm very, very excited for today's episode as I'm bringing a very special guest, an incredible woman, and that it's has strength, that has beauty inside and out, that has intelligence, that's a mom, that's a superhuman in my eyes. But among these things and more, she's also a cancer warrior, as I call her, because she has gone through a very amazing, incredible, powerful experience, yet humbling, I'm sure, that I was able to witness just a little bit, enough to just get an idea of what this process was for her. But thankfully, she'll be here to share it with you, with all of us, and to share her experience, to share what came from this, and what the message is for all the women out there who are maybe not taking it serious, or maybe are going through this at this moment in time. And so I'm again, I feel really really honored, excuse me, to have her here today. Please welcome Carrie Still. Carrie, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, Alex. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for just putting so much goodness into the world. It's necessary, and it's not everywhere that we need it to be. So I appreciate that. That is really like your mission.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I appreciate you as well, and we're all here to be the medicine, right? And
Yeah,
to one another and share our stories, and
yeah.
that's what it's all about. So that brings me to your story, and we've Carrie and I have known each other. We used to work at the same place together, and that's how I met her. But I want to really share with my audience, for you to share with them a little bit about yourself,
Yeah,
and whatever you're feeling calling to sharing, and then we'll
yeah.
we'll dive into a little bit more of your story.
Okay. All right. I'm happy to. I'm actually incredibly open about my story for a lot of the reasons I think you do what you do, Alex, because I think it's so important to share so that people can learn. You can't ever transfer life altering experiences to someone else, but you can find little nuggets and ways to increase awareness so that hopefully you can transfer some of the feelings that come out of them. So I celebrated my 50th birthday and came home from an amazing trip with some friends. And 2 very short weeks later, I found quite a substantial lump in my left breast. And didn't feel good about what that could mean. And it took a couple more weeks for me to figure out what it meant. But before I go deeply into that, I'll just back up and say that I was a single mom who had an amazing job, an amazing career, but worked really hard and did a lot of commuting, did a lot of taking care of everybody else, and very little taking care of myself. So I think that's an important start to the story because it has altered how I view life. And I thought by being everything to everybody, that was being there for people. And then I came to realize that I wasn't going to be there for people if I did kept doing everything for everybody. And I think that has been one of the profound changes for me. And I used to commute many, many hours just to show my face in an office and make sure that I was, everywhere and doing everything I should be doing. And when I found that lump, it was quite like immediately all life altering. I about 2 weeks later got the diagnosis that I had stage 3 breast cancer, and it was in my lymph nodes, which is quite terrifying. There's no question about it. But I'm incredibly fortunate to have a lot of great friends around me, and they really they really rounded up around me. And more importantly, I also had, or just as important, I also had an incredible peer set of friends and family at work. You were one of those people that were on my team at the time, and I think I have a lot of reflection of how I just immediately exited stage left and was like, I've got to go. I
Mm-hmm.
can leave this in your hands, but I got to go take care of me.
Yeah.
And I really did that. I mean, I really I exited stage left immediately and said, I'll be back when I'm back.
Mhm.
And I feel very fortunate that I obviously had a place that allowed me to go and take that leave and take care of myself when I needed to. But you know, finding out at the age of 50 when you were just kind of like getting started for the second half of your life that, whew, that part makes me emotional that there's a real possibility it's
Mhm.
not much longer,
Mhm.
was really startling, but also like very quickly I got my arms around it and was like, oh no, it's not the end of my story. Like,
Mhm.
I'm having none of that. And I think, you received probably that note that I sent as well that was like, here's the deal. I am putting on my big girl boots and
Mhm.
I'm going to run through this shit as fast as I possibly can, which sort of led to our boots on motto for my journey through cancer. But I also, with being a single mom and looking at my daughter and having to tell her that news, knew that like I was not that was not going to be it for me. I was not having that. And so I also think that that's a huge part of what brings me to still being here today. Is like I was not having it.
Mhm. Yeah, wow. Yeah, that I remember all of those moments that you
Yeah,
just shared with us. And thank you, by the way, for sharing that. And it was I was pretty new to the team at the time.
yeah,
And even at this stage of my life, I was still very much in my what I would call my awakening stages, and
yeah,
I was really feeling a lot of new things and people. And when we first met, I always felt like this strength, but also this amazing kindness and beautiful heart. And, I really got to see that strength at that moment. And I was kind of in shock at first because I was like, wow, how can I just saw her, a few days ago, and
yeah,
everything was seemed fine.
yeah,
But it just goes to show, how life can be so fragile,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so that was an amazing and powerful moment. And I wanted to ask you, I wanted to take our listeners back to that initial moment when you found out.
yeah,
Obviously, if you could walk us a little bit, like
sure,
what was going through your mind. I know you mentioned a
yeah,
little bit about, obviously you're a mother, and
mhm,
still being at a young age in your life, and all these thoughts and emotions that must have come. But what
yeah,
drove you to make that pivotal point to say, no, I'm gonna
yeah,
beat this. I got this.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I was alone. I mean, as many of us women are when we go get our mammograms, you're in a room by yourself. And my gut knew that
Mm,
this was going to probably be the outcome. But when you're in a room like that, and then they come, that the radiologist, not the radiologist, well, the guy who reads your mammogram comes in, and I mean, his face it told the story pretty
mm,
quickly. And so that, like, you go into your deep moment of complete and utter fear. Like, I recall, I mean, he said to me, I wasn't stage 5, but the likelihood that it was cancer was stage 5 based on like what he looked at.
wow.
And I walked out into the waiting room, and I didn't even know how to find my car. Like, there was this little lovely, amazing human sitting behind the desk, and I was sobbing, and I was like, I don't even know where to get to my car. And she like walked me around to get me to my car. And I called, some of my friends on the drive home. I did call my parents as well, but some friends quickly rallied and met me, and we sat down and absorbed it for a minute. And I think it was when I recognized that I had to tell my daughter, that I was like, yeah, no, I can't go into telling my daughter if I don't believe that this isn't the end. Like, I
Mm,
can't say those words to her and have fear. And
mhm,
so I kind of had to journey through a couple of days where I didn't tell her yet because I needed to just have a little bit more information. And once I got sort of like at least understanding like, okay, there's a treatment for what you have. Like, when you hear cancer, you immediately think death. Like it's just a very common reaction because if you haven't had it or been around people that have had it, you don't necessarily understand that there are a lot of great treatments out there for it. Um, if you're going to get one, this is one of them that is incredibly well funded, thankfully for me. So I got a little bit of power and information immediately. And then once I got that, it was like a very fast turning point for me. I was like, no, this is not who I am. Like,
Mm,
I mean, you knew me, Alex. Like I think I'm a positive, but I'm also like, we're gonna find a way.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I know any other thing than that. So I was like, yep, nope, this is not happening. So I felt like I had to build that power in that truth so that I could tell my daughter. So
Mm-hmm.
that when I told her, I was like, it's gonna be okay. Because I believed it.
And that's so powerful right there. That the power of belief, the power of looking literally as you were doing, looking at death, right? A potential
Yeah.
death, and
Yeah.
having the courage to even with I mean, that's the ultimate fear state, right? That's the
Yeah.
ultimate ego threat is death. And
Yeah.
to be bombarded with emotions and thoughts, and even with all of that,
Yeah.
to sit down, digest everything, and find your center,
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I'm gonna do this for me. I'm gonna do this for my daughter. I'm gonna do it
Yeah.
because I believe I can."
Yeah.
And that it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And with that being said, would you say that that was a major factor, or a factor at least,
Yeah.
in your process of recovery? Would you say that
Yeah.
that was a big one?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think you know a little bit about this, but like when I did get my diagnosis and knew like I had a journey ahead of me and like sort of the way I found my doctors, like little things that just like came together that were like, okay, I'm ready to take this on full force. A lot of people do great things for people when they're hit with tragedy, like start, a food chain or various things like that. And I sat down with my friend and I was like, I don't want that. I want a walking chain.
Mm,
And I want you to just send out a sign up sheet. And I want people at 9 a.m. every day meeting me at the beach and we're going to walk. And I honestly think that that was like the biggest gift of all of the things that got me through the journey I went on, because all those things that you look down the face of, like chemotherapy and, radiation and surgery. I mean, you just have these visions of you like in a couch, you can't move, everybody's
mm,
catering to you. It's like, it's just a horrible immediate image. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And I almost for 365 days had somebody walking with me on that walking chain, and most of those walks took place on the beach. And I think like I know for me that getting up and walking, even like I would come home from chemo and I would immediately get my dog's leash and I would start walking, even if I walked around the block or because you're not. I mean, you're not always full of energy by any
mm,
stretch and everybody is different. So I think it's
mhm,
important to say that in this moment. But I do think me getting up and moving and having that purpose of somebody meeting me every single day kept me getting up and moving and being positive. And I think the gift in return was oftentimes what happened after those conversations and those walks. And a lot of my wonderful people from work came down and drove down to walk with me on some of those days. And I think they left with perspective and they
mm,
left with the gift of going, wait a minute, I got to stop for a second. Like I'm not doing all the things I should be doing for myself first. And that was kind of like, it was therapy for me, but I think it also ended up being therapy for people who walked with me. And was kind of like, in my opinion, I didn't let anything settle in my body. I kept moving all of it out, emotions and, whatever those toxins were that I needed to take care of the badness inside of me so that I kept them moving and not settling inside of me,
mm.
which I think is a pretty good metaphor for emotions too at the same time, right? It's like if
Yes.
we leave them in here, it's like a tunnel. And if we get stuck in the tunnel, it's dark. But if we like keep pushing through, we can start to see the light. And I think like all of those things were, were true.
What a beautiful way to explain how not only how powerful the mind is, right? But also intention,
Yeah.
right? When we really get clear with our intention and really focus on what we get clear on our focus rather,
Yeah.
it has tremendous amount of power because it
Yeah.
is the driving force of what how we live our life. And
Yeah.
so, with these intentions that you had already set up for yourself and also surrendering to the guidance that you were receiving from inside of you to push forward with this and to say, hey, no, like I want to share a walk with somebody every day in that medicine of being in nature, but also in exchanging wisdom, exchanging love, exchanging
Yeah.
just time and everything. It's a true definition of intention, right? And
Yeah.
how powerful that is. And so
For
um
sure.
so I want to pivot a little bit more
Yeah.
now into obviously this had a huge impact as we've been listening in your life, obviously in your
Yeah.
career. However, what would you say was the biggest pivoting point, rather than when you first heard the news,
Sure.
right, and you made that decision? At what point did you feel the something shift inside of you that you
Yeah.
started to look at life very differently, and that
Yeah.
what came with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost impossible to say that it didn't happen instantaneously because it did.
Hmm.
I mean, I literally, I mean, Alex, you saw me. I was like, I am done. And I
Hmm.
cannot believe the way I have been living my life. I cannot believe the things I have been worrying about. They are so insignificant in comparison when you face the reality that like you got this challenge for your life ahead of you. And I mean, that really was instantaneous. And clearly, like my daughter is such a purpose for me, as anyone who knows me knows, and anyone who's a parent. I'm not alone in that. And so it was like she'd had enough in her little life that she needed me. And I wasn't about to not be there for it. So it really was pretty instantaneous. But I think over time, what happened is like, I mean, during that journey, like I got into therapy, I got her into therapy. That's a lot for someone at her age to absorb. And I did a lot of just like reading of just like little one day sayings. I'm staring at my books over here that are like I pull them down. I did it before I sat down with you. I read my one page of things that get my mind right. And I did create routine that helped me like so that I would start my day in the right way.
Mm.
And what actually, I mean, I tell you that because it has changed the way I do things. Like I used to be a kind of like get up and just go, like whatever the day brings, I fumble through it. And I'm no longer, I mean, I still have those things too, but I'm very structured. I like every single morning I get up and I take care of me first. And then once I'm done, whether it's my Peloton, whether it's my walk, whether it's always sitting down with my cup of coffee and reading one phase that gets my mind set for the right state every day. And then I go about my day, and I never did that before, and I realized how valuable it was. And that was my lesson, that like taking care of me means I can be here to take care of everybody else. And I do all of that, I believe. And I hope my daughter would tell you, although she's 18 right now and about to go to college. So I'm not usually that right very often, but I would argue that the people around me would say the same thing, that like I'm better at what I do, both like as a person, as a friend, as a daughter, as a mom, and for sure also at work when I went back to work, which was a long journey and was a very different experience for me, which we can talk about, as well. But like I think I was very different when I came back to work.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think an experience like that, I can relate in, and I've experienced like close death experiences, and it does shift, right? It's a door
Yeah.
that once you open it, it's you now have that
Yeah.
exposure, now you have that awareness of life, and
Yeah.
it's really, I mean, I've never met anybody that is has looked back from that and it's like, oh, I closed that door, like, yeah, that happened, but whatever. No, it has always shifted
Yeah.
people in a very profound way. And so, yeah, I mean, when you came back and seeing you in between,
Yeah.
was really powerful, was really, really powerful to see the transformation, but also to see the stages, the shifting,
Right.
right?
Yeah. No, you guys
Um,
watched the journey for sure.
so it was definitely a different Carrie,
Yeah.
but I think in many ways, I think it was just your authentic self, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think I
but
got to be more of who I really am, and I
mhm,
got to be really free in it. And I've gotten to be way much more brave. Like, I don't, I think I say that a lot at work. It's like, and just in life. I mean, I don't worry about the things that I thought were important. I'm like, some of the things at work that we all get sucked into that it's like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. And I'm like, that actually does not even matter. It's like
mhm,
really not important. And that doesn't mean my job isn't important. It doesn't mean that the work I do isn't important. It just means that like the way I let it consume me with anxiety and fear was not necessary. And I think then I didn't also probably handle situations as well as I could have because all I was driven by was that like angst and fear and anxiety. And now there's pretty few things at work that can rattle my cage anymore.
mhm,
I pretty much am always like, we're gonna figure it out. Take
mhm,
take a deep breath. Like this is not, we are not fighting for our lives in this
mhm,
moment. We are
mhm,
literally just solving a business problem that we can do better if we're calm. And remember that this is not the most like this literally is not the most important thing in the world right now. It's important to their business. It's important to our business, but
mhm.
it's not life altering. And just take a minute.
Absolutely. I think, I call that the matrix. I call the world that
Yeah,
I refer to it as the matrix. And it's so interesting, right? That when so many of us sometimes have or still do walk blindly into the systems
yeah,
that we are supposed to do all these things and
right.
these ideas of having all these things, and we lose track, we get disconnected from the
Yeah,
true purpose of being a human being and being here. And unfortunately and fortunately, I've experienced a lot of death around me in my young age, and I've
yeah.
seen a lot of people in their last stages.
Hmm.
And the one thing that I've gathered, one thing that I've observed, is that everybody has that moment of regret, at least a little bit of like, man, I wish I would have done more of this, and then they want to express themselves,
Yeah,
and it's sad, right?
yeah,
It's sad
yeah,
that it has to get to that point for us to
yeah,
realize, like, what am I doing?
yeah,
What,
exactly.
like, is this really, to zoom out, right? Zoom
Yeah,
out and really think about, is this really worth getting upset? Is this really worth putting stress in my body, putting
yeah,
all of this energy into something that it's just not worth it? There's so much more to life,
yeah.
you know?
I mean, Alex, you just said something I think is really important, which is that, I mean, and I know I've said this to you, like, I do believe I got cancer from stress. I mean, I
Hmm.
wholeheartedly believe that I did because it's not genetically in my family. I do not have the BRCA gene. Like, it is, like, I cannot trace it back to something
Hmm.
other than stress. And I think like that was like a huge epiphany for me and that shift in how I live my life of like, I can actually take control of my thoughts in
Hmm.
order to not allow that stress. And it was something like when I was going through treatment and going through cancer. I mean, I do feel like, I mean, I got like this connective tissue therapy that like helped me just like get rid of anxiety. But like, when you get so focused and you become on a mission to like, I was going to be the best darn student or patient there ever was. It's like, oh, here's my plan. Okay, watch me. Just watch me
Hmm.
do this.
Hmm.
And I was very determined, but I was also like, I knew that because I very quickly felt like stress was the reason I got it. I was like, nope, it's not allowed in my world anymore. Like, I
Hmm.
just wouldn't allow it. Like, if somebody was bringing it, I'm like, not having it.
Hmm.
And one of the ways that, like, I think I have tried to like transfer that, because I think it's something that we all just like, I mean, how many people can't sleep? They're stressed. They wake up in the middle of the night. Like, I actually like go almost the entire time through cancer, other than like going into surgery, like the first, like getting my port in, going to my first chemo, getting like those things. Like, I had anxiety, of course, but like I had very little anxiety during the entire time that I went through my cancer experience. I mean, even like losing my hair, it was like, all right, like bring my daughter along. Let's go. Let's pick out some wigs and let's like shave that head and let's just like buy some scarves. And like I was able to like not take things so serious and realize like all I wanted to do was live. And my daughter actually like painted this thing on my wall that's her handwriting and it says live. And I recently got it tattooed on me as well. And like all of that has allowed me to just stay focused on that exact thing. Like all I want to do every single day is live. And I am so grateful I get to. And I know I can't transfer that to anyone else, but like the two things that like always stick with me that I try to take a little bit of it and pass along are one, and you might remember me saying this, but I during that time I did a lot of reading, and one of the things I read about was just like our thoughts.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna say the statistics not exactly right, but what I read that has been really powerful that I say a lot is you have like 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day.
Hmm.
And 85% of those thoughts are the same as the day before. And 99% of those thoughts do not come true. And when you like process that for a second, you're like, what a colossal waste of energy the
Hmm.
majority of my day is, if that's what I'm allowing to happen. And sometimes data is what we need. And I feel like using that, even though I'm sure I have the numbers a little off, is always like stop people in their tracks a little, like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I cannot believe I'm doing that every day. What am I doing that for? Like, I wasn't thinking about stage 3 breast cancer. I was thinking about 1,000 other things, and none of them happened. Stage 3 breast cancer happened. Like,
Hmm.
you cannot do any good when you sit and focus on the things that won't happen. And I know I've shared this with you, but like the other thing is I've got these little bells
Hmm.
and they're
Yeah.
little hearts. And I like, they call me the bell lady now. I buy so many of them, but like, I can't transfer that like piece of like stop and let things just calm. But I carry those with me and I'll always like find a reason. And I mean, I walked into a store 2 days ago and this woman was talking about her sister with cancer. And I was like, okay, hold on. We ended up having a long conversation. I gave her a bell, but like I give these bells as like a reminder, like put it in your purse, put it in your car. When you hear it ring, it's your moment to stop and realize like life is precious, live it in to the fullest. Like, don't get caught in the things that you can't control that don't matter. Stop the madness in your brain. And I think that is like, you know, part of the power of like what you can't transfer is just like, I know that. I wholeheartedly know that in a way that I can't transfer, but I can give you a nugget.
Mm-hmm. Wow, beautiful. I just want to take a moment to breathe all that in. Like that was so beautiful. Whew, yeah, absolutely. You hit on some really powerful stuff, Carrie, and it's so true and it's beautiful to watch and to be of witness, right? Of someone that's just with such determination that it
Yeah.
wasn't easy, right? Let's
No.
just be candid, right?
No.
It had its many challenges, of course,
Yes,
but
for sure.
ultimately it was the awareness, right? It was the awareness that you gain of how you were living your life and
Yep.
how you wanted to live for the remaining of the years to come, right? And I feel like that is such an empowering realization that we all have access to.
Yep.
And that's what you're trying to get at. It's like it doesn't have to get to this point of
Yep.
of having to face, cancer or
Yeah.
any other thing like this. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like this.
Yeah.
And these bells are reminders of, hey, wake up,
Yep.
zoom out,
Yeah, exactly.
like really understand what you
Yeah.
are and what life is. And I think that that is very powerful. And
Yeah.
I really like that idea a lot. I think that's really cool that you're
Yeah.
doing still.
Yeah.
Uh,
They find their way. It's the weirdest thing. Like, and the ones I have like animals. They have all these things on them. They're painted, and it's like I always look at them. Like I'll bring them and I'll hand them to somebody. I'll have like five in my hand, and I'll be like, I know exactly which one you're gonna pick, but which one do you want? And they like nine
I love
times out
it.
of ten, they pick the one that I knew they were gonna pick. But they've been really helpful for people. But I just think even just going back to the statistics, it's like just we are able to stop ourselves from making ourselves crazy. We really
Hmm.
are. Like I mean, and
Hmm.
I say that in the terms of anxiety and the spin in our brain. And I also don't want to minimize like the reality of mental, like there's lots of things that sometimes you
Hmm.
can't control and you need added support on. So I'm just saying the day-to-day thoughts for the most part, we can try and put them in their spot, put them in their place. And again, I know not everyone can, so I don't want to be.
No, no, it's I agree with you. I think, what I always share with people, and in my journey I did it as well, is just pausing, right?
Yeah.
It's taking a pause to go to your breath.
Yep,
I always
totally.
say that, go to your breath, breathe,
Yep.
and zoom out. Have the, like, again, it goes back to the awareness, and um like, just look at yourself
Mhm.
and say, hey, what's the life that I'm living, and what's the life that I want to live? And again, you are a great example of how powerful, going back again to not just determination, but intention and
Yeah.
focus, how
Yeah.
powerful that can be, that you can have something as challenging as what you did with cancer, and gain the strength within yourself to push through. And no matter what came at you, it was that your mindset that helped you get through it all.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to go into a little bit about, let's say that somebody is perhaps listening, that perhaps they're in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
What would you say? What advice would you give to someone
Yeah.
who has been recently diagnosed with breast cancer, or to
Yeah.
someone who is supporting a loved one,
Yeah.
through the diagnosis and or treatment?
I'm going to start that by saying, and I say this a lot, is like also, I found mine. I had lost a friend to breast cancer and I went every 12 months. I was 2 months late. I was 14 months
Mm,
from my normal checkup. And it was large and it was something I found in the shower that I'm like, how could I have not felt this before? Like it was kind of insane to me that I did not feel that before. And so my message is like, you do not have to, please, women and men, because men can get it too, but men, for the women in your lives, I know it's terrifying. It's not fun, doesn't feel great, but do not miss these appointments. I mean, Alex, you said it early on, like I had no idea. I was at
mm,
a business function
mhm,
like 2 days before I found it. And you would never have looked at me and been like, oh my gosh, she doesn't look good.
mhm,
Like I was normal. I was living my very normal life and I had
mhm,
stage 3 breast cancer. And thank God I found it. But like all it takes is also just feel them on the first. That's what they say.
mhm,
It's not hard to do. There's lots of lessons online. You can look it up on exactly how to do it or just talk to your doctor, but you can do it in the shower on the beginning of every month. Make sure you understand what your body feels like so that you understand something different. And so I can't emphasize that enough because it's not and not everybody has access to, healthcare either that allows for them to get these if they want to get them earlier. And breast cancer is happening earlier and earlier and earlier. And so that's why it's really critical that you just like every month on the first do this, please. So let me start with that and then just say that like I think I'm fortunate. I work at Reddit, and one of the things that really brought me to Reddit is the breast cancer community and the power of community and people that are only just there to support and help each other. And I get the opportunity to answer that question that you're asking a lot on Reddit as like a anonymous human being who's just on the platform, and that's a community I care about. And I see messages all the time that's like from a husband. My wife just got diagnosed with this kind of cancer. We're terrified. What do we do? And I'm always trying to step in and respond to those things. And I kind of think it's like you do have to take a step back and breathe.
mm,
You have to recognize that you're not going to think clearly for about 3 weeks while you're, or however long it takes to get your solid diagnosis. So be sure that you step back. And I have like a little guide I do too of just like, okay, what are the questions you need to ask so that you can be your own advocate? And I think that's a really important part, because I think, lots of people just like go to one doctor and believe everything that doctor says. And that does not mean that's not a good doctor, but there are different points of view, and you are an individual that has to follow your gut. So I always say that people should get a second opinion, that they should, if you can, bring somebody. And I actually I encourage it to not necessarily be a family member. I was fortunate to have a friend come with me to every one of my appointments, because you don't hear clearly when you're in stress in those moments. And to have somebody else taking notes with you and like conferring with you, hey, this is what I heard them say, do we need to ask more questions? Like, take this into your hands. They are you are their client. I mean, they are your, how do I say this, you are the one that gets to make the decision, not them. And I think we oftentimes like just believe in the power of their knowledge and go, okay, I'm going to do exactly what they say. And I'm not saying that they're not right, but you have to feel good about it. And you have to feel confident that for you, that's the right decision, because there are a lot of decisions to make. But also, like, I think stopping and realizing like this is a cancer in particular, if we're talking breast cancer, that there are so many amazing, therapies and diagnoses and outcomes that are very positive. Like, my doctors immediately looked at me and they were like, we're going to cure you. It's not like, you're going to live 5 more years. And look, the range is different. Some people are going to have that answer. But I think like the reality is there is amazing technology and amazing cures for this, but you have to be a part of that. So it's like, find your list of questions that are, very simply written down, and ask them of every doctor. Do your research, have somebody help you do it. I mean, I worked for a company where I could have searched a million things and I could not. It was not healthy for me. So I think that's the other thing. You need that other person that won't let you go down the rabbit hole of fear, because there's lots of scary stories out there about cancer and about any diagnosis, but you can't go and bury yourself in those, or you won't be able to find that positive ability to move forward. So like, contain that too, like decipher it, push it aside, get the facts, and don't get caught in the rabbit holes of fear. And then I think it's like, you also have to listen to your gut. Like for me, there's a lot of decisions, like, are you going to have a mastectomy? Are you going to, you know, are you going to not have radiation? Are you going to have radiation? All of these things, are you going to take this medicine for 10 years? And nobody can tell you what you're going to do other than you listening to your gut and saying like, I know what's right for me. And that is hard. And that goes back to a lot of things that you talk about, Alex, which is like, sometimes you got to step back and just sit and breathe and like think for yourself. Like in many things, including how to go forward with my treatments, it just was like, I'm going to go sit at the beach. Just going to be by myself. I'm not going to like let all the noise of other people's opinions. I'm just going to stop and think like, what is right for me? What feels right in my gut for me? And that's something that I think you do learn after experiences like this, is to listen to your gut. It is quite powerful what you know to be true for yourself, but you don't listen to most of the time. So I think it's like, I've said a lot of random things, but the point is like, have somebody there with you that can listen in with you, have your questions. You are the patient. You are there. They are I don't know why I'm having the hardest time like deciphering the direction of that.
It's okay.
But like, you're in charge. It is your life and your decisions, and they are all incredibly informed and powerful in what they can give you, but you got to do what feels right for you. And then when you make that decision, like go for it full force. Like, this is a mission to get through this and get it done. And so I think, just remembering that it's not all horrible. I mean, like, even like losing my hair was one of those things that like, I personally made that decision that I wasn't going to put on, like, there's caps and things you can put on to save your hair. But in my life, for me, I was like, if you're going to put this on my body, it's going to every little orifice there is. I am not allowing this to happen again. So like lose my hair. And that was actually really incredibly freeing. And like I found scarves that I wore every day. Like there's amazing journeys that you would never expect to be okay with that can come out of that.
Mm,
I lost
mhm,
a lot of my vanity. I
mm,
just cared that my body worked. Didn't matter
mm,
what it looked like. I felt beautiful even when I was bald.
mhm,
And it had everything to do with the fact that my body worked, not
mm.
that there was vanity. So like just know you're going to find some beautiful things along the way. And I know you know this, I've said this. It's like one of the best gifts I've ever been given is getting cancer. And that's such a weird thing to say, but it really changed me for the better in a lot of ways.
Beautiful, beautiful. That is very, very powerful stuff right there. Thank you again, Carrie, for sharing all that. And it's just I as you were speaking, I could just feel all these words that you're saying, and the importance, right, of also connecting with your body, having that body
Yeah.
connection, being connected to your intuition, our
Yeah.
gut feeling. Ultimately, the more we are connected with ourselves, it's in that connection that we find the joy, that we find everything that we're looking for in the
Yeah.
outside world, and we can really hone in our own peace and harmony and
Yeah.
create what we want in our lives. And it's just really powerful. It's really, really powerful that you have this wisdom, you have this experience now, this awareness,
Yeah.
and how you show up every day for yourself, for your daughter, for people that you work with, that you socialize with. It's making an impact in the
Thanks.
world, in consciousness. And so there's many, many more questions, of course, that we could go on with this
Yeah. Yeah.
about, because it's there's so much to unpack and to share.
Yeah.
But I really want to be mindful of our
Yeah.
time, and
Thank
also
you.
the energy that this going back, right, that it must
Yeah.
take from you. And want to follow that with a lot of gratitude,
Thank you.
for you being brave again. As always,
Yeah.
continue to be brave to share your
Yeah.
story, and to show up the way that you do every single day.
Thanks.
That it makes a big difference in the world. So thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you. I mean, truly, like it's been a really beautiful journey to watch you transform since I started working with you too. And you've done a lot of the things that we've talked about. Like you stopped, you've assessed, you've changed, you've made big decisions, and then ultimately you've followed your gut into doing what it is that you know brings you joy, but also extends that joy outwardly. So I just have so much adoration for you and what you've done and the way that you are now just living your life the way that you know is right. I talk about this example a lot, like knowing sometimes you make changes in life and you think like you don't know where it's going to lead you, but oftentimes making a difficult or a big change can also be like the most rewarding and get you on the right path. So I feel like you've done a lot of that. So I
No,
just
thank you.
appreciate what you do.
We are mirrors.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
we're mirrors, and that's the
We were
beauty of.
we were meant to meet.
Absolutely. And what a blessing. What a blessing.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right,
Al.
Carrie. Thank you so much
You're
again.
welcome.
Really has been an honor and an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure, and to have you and to be able to have this conversation with you. Many
Thank you.
blessings to you. And if anybody ever it has any questions or anything like that regarding cancer, is there a place in Reddit where they can go, or somewhere where they
Yeah.
can get more information that you?
Yeah, I mean, there literally is a subreddit that's called breast cancer.
Okay.
And it is an incredible resource. I truly can't say enough about just going to a place where people are only there to help each other. So there's that. And then obviously there's always, I mean, there's Susan G. Komen, there's,
Mm,
your hospitals, there's so many great places, but I mean, also I think, just lean into your friends and your family and know that people want to help you and they don't always know how,
mm,
and follow your gut. But I mean, Alex, I will always help wherever I can. I don't have like a certain place just for me that's public. that I'm helping yet, but that's once I get my daughter to college, I have plans for how I will be even more impactful externally.
I'm excited for that.
So
But thank
thanks
you,
again for having me. I really appreciate it.
of course. And thank you, Carrie. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay. Bye.